Hello, all. Welcome to episode 2 of Tire Talk, where we talk all things F1. And today we are going to talk about the Singapore GP. Before that, Arpit, would you like to have any comments on the race that happened last week?
Yeah, I mean the race was phenomenal, and it was a really good result for McLaren, I would say.
Okay, amazing. So let's go over the qualifying results, right? So basically, Norris did phenomenally well to land upon pole. I think it was a very busy weekend where I think Ferrari, despite almost acing FP1 and FP2, I think did really badly in FP3 and the qualifying. I think they ended up ninth and 10th in the qualifying. And I mean, Leclerc, unfortunately, having exceeded track limits, his lap was not counted, and Sainz crashing in the crashing in Q3. Like that was a really bad result for Ferrari. So they started ninth and 10th. I felt that Ferrari, if they would have like been in the top three or top four positions, I think they would have fought for the win, or they would have at least finished in the podium places. But I think Mercedes, McLaren, and Verstappen for Red Bull, I think did really well. I think Norris started on P1, Verstappen was P2, Hamilton was P3, Russell was P4. So I think that was a brilliant performance by Verstappen, McLaren, and Mercedes drivers. I would not say Perez, because again Perez did not do well, because I think Red Bull had pace, but again Checo could not capitalize on it. I think the surprise of the qualifying was Hülkenberg, who started in the sixth position. I think that was a phenomenal result for Haas team. I think Piastri also struggled in the qualifying. He started on P5, and that was all about qualifying. I think qualifying was pretty much as we expected, except the Ferrari drivers. I think they ended up not in the expected positions. I think rest of the grid was pretty much what we expected. Right? What do you think about that, Arpit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way Ferrari started in the practice as well as in the initial stages of the qualifying, like the Q1 and Q2, they were pretty good. They were pretty fast actually. And then Sainz, I don't know what happened with him. Maybe the tires were not ready, or maybe he did some, like he went something over, so he crashed out from the qualifying, and then Leclerc also not getting the time recorded for his lap as well. Again, like Mercedes got a pretty good result. I think they came third and fourth, which was like
Yeah.
good for their car. Like seeing their car condition, it's pretty good for them. Similarly, you said like Checo didn't get much in the qualifying as well as in the race, so he's not doing well like for many races, but he's just showing glimpse in between
Yeah,
somewhere
I think
here
it's
and there.
it's yeah, I think it's confusing because he started the season pretty well. I think in the first two races he did pretty well, but later on, I mean, again, his performance has been really poor. I think it's
Yep.
funny how Leclerc kept on complaining about the tires after the qualifying, but then in the on the race day when he completed the race, I think he kept saying that it was his mistake that led to him exceeding track limits. I think that was very funny because I think I'm sure Ferrari, someone from the PR team of Ferrari must have told him not to complain too much, and that's quite funny because he has been. I mean, always I have seen that in the last few seasons as well as this season, Ferrari drivers have been making a mistake, either they have screwed up in strategy or their car just was not fast. So I think it's just bad luck with Ferrari overall. And I can really compare that with the performance of Manchester United in most of the matches that we see. I think it's pretty similar to that. I think historically United have been amazing team, but I mean, as usual in the last few years, they have not been performing well. I think exactly what we see with Ferrari. Okay, moving on to the race. I think race was pretty boring. I felt it was the most boring race that I've seen in this season. I think all the other races had something to cheer about, except the first two, of course, where Verstappen absolutely killed all the competition. I think he was phenomenal in the beginning of the season. That's why he is in that position where he can win the championship. But I think starting of the race, I'll just summarize the race for all our viewers. I think starting of the race itself, I think Norris had an amazing start off the line, and immediately, like in the first like 15 minutes itself, we took like a 13-second lead, which is like phenomenal. And Verstappen was nowhere close to his pace. But I think I should give credit to Verstappen because he maximized whatever he could. in the race, and he finished on second position. I think that was a phenomenal performance. Apart from that, anything else you want to talk about in the race? Because I am really short of words and I'm really short of things to talk about in the race. Because I think the other thing I would talk about Mercedes, but I would like to hear your opinion first before we move on to Mercedes and Ferrari.
Yeah, I think if we go to Mercedes, probably they have the best position seeing the qualifying, and everyone expected like Hamilton and Russell to defend it and go for like either one of them go on the podium. But again, they were not pretty much good in the race, and I think it's more of a strategy issue. Like Hamilton pitted quite early, and later on he was struggling on the tires,
Yeah.
and Russell he was like going on for 20-30 laps on the same tires, and then coming out in the pit and taking on the hards. So that like they mostly struggle on the
Yeah.
strategy part. But seeing Hulkenberg is like it's a quite shocking thing, and it's a thing that you usually don't see in F1, like Hulkenberg going on the sixth position for a longer time, and even he was holding Piastri as well for a very long time. So those are pretty much things that I think in the race there were.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
Piastri didn't start the race that well. I think he
yep.
was behind Hülkenberg on the first few turns itself, and then Piastri recovered his position, but I think Piastri did phenomenally well in the later half of the race, where he kept on getting more and more positions recovered. Like he overtook Hamilton, he overtook Russell. I think he did a phenomenal job. I think one thing I would really say that I am not sure whether Mercedes screwed up with the strategy, because I think Mercedes had a disaster of a race, because they were in a position to get the podium places, but they unfortunately screwed up with strategy. Or I'm not sure whether Ferrari was too fast, because Leclerc finished in front of Hamilton, and he just almost overtook Russell at the end. I think that was the highlight for me, because, of course, I'm a Ferrari fan, so I would talk about Ferrari more, because I think Leclerc was really fast in the race. I think, unfortunately, they had a very bad Saturday and they could not really recover from that. I think that's the whole gist of it. But I think, what do you think about Norris's performance? I think he was like from start to finish, he led the race. I think he was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, Norris was phenomenal. I guess, like as you said, in like 15-16 laps, he was 13 seconds ahead of Verstappen, which usually we don't see, because
Yeah,
Verstappen, like when he starts in the front of the grid, he usually give a tough competition to its opponents. But again, like Norris did a pretty good job. One thing which reminded me of, like we are talking about Norris, that incident happened in, I guess, lap 28 or 29, when he was just about to crash in the wall,
yeah,
but again he recovered from there and went on winning the
yeah,
race. So for Norris, I think that's the moment of the match, like moment of the race for me. Even when I was watching out the like the post match interview where drivers sit down and they watch the highlights, both the drivers who were on the podium, they were pretty much shocked seeing how Norris recovered from there. So I mean, Norris has a very good drive, and finally has broken the jinx of being on the podium and winning
yeah.
the race. So that's for him the highlight, I would say.
Yeah, and I think Verstappen, unfortunately, I don't know, he didn't have pace. Otherwise, I am sure, like with his driving skills, he would have given a tough fight to Piastri and Norris. I think Piastri obviously was really fast. I think Piastri, again, the same thing as I would say about Leclerc, same thing I would say about Piastri, because I think had Piastri qualified like third or fourth, he would have given Norris a tough time, because I think it was very easy for him to overtake Verstappen with that car. I think McLaren was super fast. I think McLaren and then Ferrari probably I would say were like the second best car in the race, but I think the qualifying pretty much sealed the fate for Ferrari. So I think that's what I would feel. Anything else that you want to talk about in the race that really was interesting apart from obviously the top five positions?
I think seeing the results, I was just checking out the results, and one thing I probably noticed is Colapinto for Williams. He's been doing pretty good because he came 11th just behind Perez. So for him as well, it's a pretty good drive, I would say, because we don't see Williams usually finishing up in like the upper half of the race, like probably 11, 12, and they have done pretty much good job with Kola Pinto, and he has driven like a good ride for the race.
Yeah, I think Science finished. Also, I would like to talk about Science for a minute. I think Science finished. in the seventh position. I think, and he pitted very early because he was losing a lot of time behind the slow cars, and I mean, he had to pit early. Otherwise, he would have definitely challenged Hamilton. But I think he finished seventh, which was pretty much fair because I think Ferrari was fast, but not as fast as McLaren or Mercy I would say probably slightly on pace with Red Bull, but I think it was a fair result for Ferrari after the qualifying that they had. Fifth and seventh, this was a fair reflection of the race. I mean, fair reflection of where their car was over the weekend. Apart from that, I would like to talk about Daniel. I think Daniel Ricciardo's probably last race. I think it was funny to see that even the paddock was not sure whether it is his last race or not, but everybody was like talking to him about his career, and they were talking to him about how his experience has been with F1, and it was quite funny to see that even the team principal of their team was not sure whether he's leaving or not. I think that's really funny to see. But I think Ricardo did the fastest lap, which might end up helping Verstappen in the end of the season. I think he got the fastest lap, and mathematically keeps Verstappen. I mean, mathematically keeps Verstappen or par with Norris, even if Norris wins all the races. I think that one point is going to make a lot of difference. But I don't think so. Verstappen is going to drop off significantly in the last few races. I think he's going to win the championship for sure. What do you think about Daniel Ricciardo and his performance? I think I mean, again, a mixed. He had a very very mixed race. I think he was overtook by so many drivers, but then he got the fastest lap at the end. I think that's the only highlight for him in the race. Any comments about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Ricardo like driving for a lot of teams. Like when
Mm.
I started watching F1, he was driving for, I guess, McLaren, and then he moved to Alpha Tauri now, replacing drivers in the mid seasons. But again, I've always seen him driving well. I've not seen him driving like always going in a way like he either he's driving too bad or he's driving too good. He's always been one of the balanced drivers, and I think
Mm.
he has done pretty much good job in his last race as well. Like as you said, picking up the fastest lap. And one fact which I got to know very recently is that this was, I guess, his 257th GP, and which usually many driver don't have that number of
Yeah, that's
GPs
that's a
drivers.
phenomenal career. I think that's a lot
Yeah.
of races to have. I think even I would definitely agree with that. I would believe that his career was really great with Red Bull, but as soon as Verstappen came in, I think there was a tussle between Verstappen and Ricardo for that top place in Red Bull, and eventually Ricardo had to move. I think Red Bull made a choice to stick with Verstappen as the top driver, and that was really uh, I would say the nail in the coffin for Ricardo's career. I think from there on, he moved to Renault, which is now Alpine, and then finally moved to McLaren, where he again struggled against Norris. I think Norris almost outraced him in almost every race that they were in the same team. I think I would say Ricardo had a very bad. I mean, the later half of the career was not that good. I think he struggled a lot. Even with VCarb, I think he had a very mixed kind of season, and it was eventually going to happen. I think Liam Lawson is waiting in the wings. There are so many drivers in F2 who are waiting to get these final positions. I think, as you've seen, Colapinto, Behrman, Kimi Antonelli. I think these are just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal drivers, and they should get a chance in F1. I think that's what I would say. Any other final comments to make before we end the episode?
I think we have covered pretty much everything. One thing which I just got reminded of is our prediction, which was pretty bad, I guess.
Yeah.
Like we didn't get anything right in that. So that's something I think we need to improve on, or like we should think of better predictions. But otherwise, like we have covered everything, and we can end the episode here probably.
Okay. Okay. Thank you everyone for sticking around so much. We'll see you in the episode 3 of Tire Talk. Thank you. Bye
Yeah,
bye.
yeah. Thank